In our previous module, we went through an introduction to cloud app security. We discussed the prerequisites. We discussed about 10 different types of policies we can use to configure CAS. We also discussed connected apps, and we talked about designing CAS solutions, where we talked about connected apps and policies that are used within cloud app security. So what I want to do in this module is discuss how to monitor cloud app security. And there's really two ways we can do this. We have alerts which are available to us, and we also have traffic logs that we can use. So a couple different options for us when it comes to monitoring CAS. So let's begin by talking about the CAS data retention periods. Your activity logs are held for 180 days. Your discovery data is 90 days. Your alerts are 180 days, and the governance logs are 120 days. So be familiar with these because this is the time frames that you have access to this data. And now that we've seen how long the data is available to us, how do we retrieve that data? Well, we have ways for us to monitor CAS, and the first way is a security alert. And these are generated when any unusual behavior or a security risk is identified. And we're going to be really feeding off from those policies that we talked about in the previous module. Those policies are going to be what's generating these alerts. And because they're an alert, you're going to need to constantly monitor this to determine why that alert took place and what you need to do to resolve that. In addition, we have traffic logs. This contains information about your network and all the cloud apps running in your environment. And these are fed from the logs that we talked about in the previous slide, and that's why it's important for you to understand the data retention periods within those different logs. Now, we're going to explore the alerts page in just a few moments, but when you get to the page, you're going to see we have options for providing filters. We also have a bulk selection, so we can perform bulk tasks at one time. We can export information from the alert section. We can dismiss or resolve an alert, which means when you see an alert, you can say, I'm not worried about it, let's dismiss it, or there's an action I need to take, so I'm going to take that action and then resolve that. And each alert will provide us additional details that we'll want to utilize to determine what caused the alert to be triggered and what steps we need to do, if any, to resolve the issue that was reported by the alert. So let's step out and look at the CAS alerts accessed via the CAS dashboard. So we are on the Cloud App Security dashboard, and as you can see under the General Dashboard area on the left-hand side, we can see the specific apps that we've created throughout this course, the demo for Dropbox, the demo for Office 365, and of course we also have access to Microsoft OneDrive for Business as well as Microsoft SharePoint Online. So as you can see, we have 0 open alerts, and by default it's looking over the last month, but we can drop this down and change this to a week, 3 months, or 6 months. Underneath there, we have our recent alerts. So if there were any alerts, when we land on the dashboard, we would see them immediately. The most recent would be at the top. To the right, we have by severity, so we can filter. If there are several alerts that we're looking at, we can filter them by severity or by alert type here. I'm going to go ahead and click alerts on the left-hand side. There's a little ding, ding, ding over there on the left. Obviously, we're not going to have any alerts, but I want to give you a tour of this interface. And we begin with the resolution status. We have open alerts, dismissed alerts, and resolved alerts. In the next section is category. We have access control, cloud discovery, compliance, DLP, privileged accounts, threat detection. So several options. These are going to allow us to filter the numerous alerts that we have in here. We could also filter by severity where we have low, medium, and high. We can also filter by selected apps. And in here you'll see that we have that policy that we created for Dropbox. You'll see the Office 365 policy as well. And of course, we have our OneDrive for Business and SharePoint Online. So we can filter the alerts by app type to minimize the number of alerts being shown. We can also filter by username. We can drop this down. It'll give us all of the users here. And if we know it's a particular user that is generating these alerts, we can filter and see what alerts are generated by that user. And lastly, we can filter by policy. And as you can see here, we have some of the policies that we reviewed earlier on this course. Remember, we created one here. Here's our mass downloaded by a single user MTP policy that we had created. So I can quickly come in here and click on that, and that will filter out all of the alerts except for those generated by that one policy. And while we're on alerts, there's an option over here for advanced, but we can click on advanced, and now we can go down to properties and filter on the property types. And as you can see here, we have the resolution status by default and the policy by default, but we can use the plus sign to add, and we can use the X's to remove any of these alerts in the more advanced section of filtering. I'll go back to basic. You'll see we have the funnel for showing and hiding the filters, and that hides them, and then we'll toggle it back open, and we can specify the number of items per page. Now notice because I've created a filter, in the middle of pages has an option for clearing all filters. If I click on that, it's going to clear that policy filter that I had set up, and now the option changes to create a policy. So right from within the alerts interface, I can create another policy. This is super handy because if I've gone through and I've been working with different alerts, and by seeing one alert, it triggers another alert that I can create, I can quickly go out and create that new policy. So this is the Cloud App Security Alerts interface, and this is an interface you're going to want to monitor pretty regularly to ensure both your users and data aren't at risk and to verify there are no immediate issues that you have to be concerned with.